Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Gia. I am a 28-year-old lady who still lives in my mom's basement, and today I wanted to give a little bit of a shorter review of a book that I lightly talked about in my last wrap-up video. The amount of time I spent talking about that book made me realize that I should have probably given its own review. The book that I'm talking about is The Cartographers. I rated it 3 stars. This book is about our protagonist, Nell. She is the daughter of 2 cartographers, and she herself is a cartographer. Her and her father are estranged after an incident where she found a map in the archives that she thought was valuable. It was turned in as a donation, and her father gets suddenly very upset, and he gets her fired from the New York Public Library because he said that this map was useless and that she was a disgrace. But turns out the map was important. And several years later, after she has been disgraced from the field, she ends up being called back to the New York Public Library because her dad is found dead in his office, and they're trying to figure out if foul play occurred or if it was natural causes. She goes ahead and finds the map in his briefcase, and she's wondering, why is the map in his briefcase after all these years if he didn't think that it was important? So as a way to kind of close the chapter on the entire thing about her dad getting her fired and now her dad is dead, she goes and inputs this map that her dad said was useless into the digital database, only to find every other copy of this map that has ever been found has either been destroyed, stolen, or otherwise has disappeared. She also finds out that this map is kind of sought after by cartography nerds, people who collect rare maps, and it's worth several $1,000,000. And instead of using her single brain cell inside of her head to, not log this in the digital database upon seeing that every other copy of the map has either been destroyed or stolen, she inputs it in the system and then shenanigans ensue. Now, what did I expect from this book that I did not get? Well, okay, so you have a map worth several $1,000,000. This is the only copy of it that we know of that is in somebody's hands that hasn't either been destroyed or stolen. So the map is highly sought after. People want it. They're willing to pay a lot of money for it. Something about the map is valuable for what we have no idea. Whether it is a certain copy of the map that they are looking for, whether one map in particular has something on it that they're looking for, what is it about this map that is so important to people, why they would be wanting to spend millions of dollars to try to get their hands on it? My brain immediately goes to buried treasure, because I would also think that the dad would have warned his daughter of being wary of such a thing, looking for buried treasure, that a regular map from a gas station couldn't possibly lead to a buried treasure. And during all of this, we're kind of getting this theme that the New York Public Library is struggling with its funding, right? Okay, so Nell goes through her father's contacts and finds a bunch of people that he swears that he was not in contact with. One of those people being somebody who specializes in not only rare maps, but making illegal copies of these rare maps. And this person is seen as like a taboo person to talk to. So when Nell finds this person's business card in her father's briefcase, she's like, why do you have this person's business card? And then when she shows up, the woman is very mysterious and doesn't want to talk to them. Now, here I am still thinking buried treasure. Buried treasure. We're going to find a buried treasure and we're going to save the New York Public Library and everything's going to go back to normal. Nell's going to get her job back. Her ex-boyfriend Felix, who got dragged down with her, is going to get his job back. That's what I'm thinking, right? Buried treasure, mystery. That's not what I got. Instead, what you end up getting is that the person who specialized in the rare copying of the maps turned out to be an old friend of her dad from their college years. And then you get transported back in time to their post-grad years where they are all trying to collaborate on a special project, and they find this map that does not lead them to a buried treasure, but instead is leading them to a magical location that only that map can tell you, and you can only get to the location if you have the map. The location in question is Agloe, New York. Why this is so important is that Agloe is a paper town. It is actually the same paper town that was in Paper Towns by John Green. The concept of a paper town or a phantom settlement is something that was more of a plagiarism marker by certain map makers before the time where digital map making was not invented yet. They wanted to make sure that their maps were not stolen because all map making needed to be done by hand by surveys, right? So they would put fake towns in their maps, because if they found another map that was not theirs that had that phantom settlement on it, they could sue for copyright infringement. So you don't get the buried treasure story, you get the story of your parents' friendship group falling apart because all of a sudden you're transported back in time several decades to when your parents and their post-grad friends were doing their big like post-grad project on it was called a dream atlas, where they wanted to make a book that combined maps of fantasy, like I guess you could say like a map of fantasy, like Middle Earth or something, and it was all in one book talking about how the cross between like fantasy reality and a love of maps is how I interpreted this dream atlas. They want to put Agloe in the dream atlas. Well, then when it's discovered that they can only get to the town if they have the map, it becomes more of a secret and who has the rights to this secret. I will spare you the suspense, and I will just tell you that the reason why this map was so sought after is because Nell's mother, as we know, she died in a house fire, from what we are told. The truth is that she got stuck in Agloe, and her best friend thinks that she is still alive. This best friend is in love with her and thinks that if I go and find this map and I go save her, she will love me because, oh, by the way, I killed your husband trying to get my hands on this map. But it's okay, I found you and I'm going to save you. And I was just so confused because I was thinking that there was a real tangible buried treasure. Turns out that the buried treasure was your mom, who was alive, which I guess in and of itself is a kind of treasure, right? Was kind of disappointed in this because you get this whole theme the entire time that the public library is in danger. It's having a funding problem, and Nell wants to get her job back, but she's not sure how she can, save herself from the stain of her reputation. But by using the map to get to Agloe, they get her mom free, and then her mom coming back from the dead brings a lot of traffic to the library, and everybody gets their jobs back. And I'm just confused. Is this story heartwarming and about how friendships change over time and about loss of innocence and loss of found family? Absolutely, those are parts of the story. It was not the story that I expected. So I was listening to the audiobook as I was on an airplane, and the entire time, like, my face is just in this state of confusion because this isn't what I expected. And then on top of that, the way that the mom survived in Agloe was just very confusing to me. So when I say I'm confused, it's not that I don't get it. It's just that I'm confused as to why this was the story. Because the copy of the map that survived that Nell had in her hands was saved from the house fire that the mother supposedly died in, right? Well, when the mother was trapped in Agloe, there was the house and there was all these little empty buildings. And the way that she survived was not by using like wilderness survival training. It was, okay, in this town that is a fake town and nobody lives there and there's all these buildings for some reason. In the paper town, there was a print shop, or there was a book shop, and in there was a printing press. And she was able to manufacture her own copy of the map and therefore keep Agloe alive, because you would think that if no copies of the map exist anymore, Agloe will not exist anymore because there's nobody to find it. So the mom makes her own map of Agloe. If the other map that Nell has is destroyed, she has the sole copy of the map in Agloe. Therefore, Agloe will continue to exist. They're wanting to make sure that Agloe continues to exist. So she goes to the printing press, and when she needs new clothes, she just draws a clothing shop on the map. And when she needs a grocery store, she just draws a grocery store on the map. And then she goes to sleep and wakes up the next day, and there's a grocery store and a clothing store. And that's how she survived. She just wrote and drew these things into existence, and they came to life. So now I'm thinking, okay, so we have a magical destination that only exists if you have the map to get there, and you could only get there if you have the map to get there. And you could also will buildings into existence if you draw them. Is this a power that is isolated to certain individuals, or can anybody do it? If the town is discovered and it is discussed in the media and more people know about it and more maps have Agloe on it, does Agloe become a real town for real, or does it stay a magical destination that you can only get to if you have the map. Like, the existence of this town is tied directly to having a map that has it as a destination on it. But if the town is discovered and then put on every map that ever exists, will it become a real town that everybody can go to? And then, if it is put on every map and every GPS and every Google Maps, can you get there regardless? Even if you just have Google Maps on your phone, can you straight up get there? Or is it the physical map that only gets you there? What happens if you want to develop it into a real town? Does it become a real town? Does it become a tourist trap? Is it able to be lived on? To what extent does the magic extend its life to this destination the more it becomes known? Because I guess the more that it is perceived as a real place, does it lose its magical ability to be able to create new buildings and to create new life if you draw it there? And does that magic get extended to other paper towns that exist, or is it just Agloe? On the spectrum of perception, of knowing, of acknowledging, to what extent does Agloe hold its magical ability to remain magical until too many people know about it and it's not magical anymore? These are the things I'm thinking about, right? Because the mom comes back from the dead and then it generates all this publicity for the library talking about how she came back from the dead and talking about Agloe. But then if they go public about Agloe existing, does it not become magical anymore? Did they just ruin all of it? Because the mom wanted to stay there. The mom wanted to stay in Agloe in isolation to make sure that it continued on existing. She was willing to sacrifice her independence in order to do so. And I was just fucking confused because I was like, what is the point of keeping not only this magical location alive, but what is the point of it existing if it's not to become a real place? Except to hold the magic? Is it the symbolism of the magic existing, or that magic is real and maybe there's another place that holds the same type of magic? Is this a symbol of like the things that they lost in their past, that you can only get to the parts of your past if you can only hold the map to get there, and that if you know the way to get to somewhere, you'll always find your way there. You'll always find your way back home. Am I going in way too deep about this? Yes. Is this keeping me up at night? Also, yes. So once again, I find myself in the position of having read a book that is haunting me at night and is something that I'm continuously thinking about. So why is it not a higher star rating? Why did I pick up this book that had an unexpected plot, and yet while that plot remains memorable, why is it not good in my eyes, or why is it not above a 3-star rating? Beyond the fact that the spectrum of perception of whether Agloe can continue to exist with its magical properties, besides ruminating about that over and over, I'm still stuck on the fact that this is not the story that I expected it to be, and I wish I got the story that I expected. And I found myself in a situation, I don't think I've ever found myself in this before, but when you're reading a book, and sometimes you can kind of see where things are going, and you can kind of guess and go, okay, like the mystery is not that mysterious, like I understand what's happening here and where we might be going. Every plot twist, it doesn't have to be unexpected. Everything doesn't have to be completely out of left field, right? Sometimes the joy in reading is to read something that you can understand and you could see where it's going and you can enjoy it that way. Not everything is meant to shock you. So here I am looking forward to a buried treasure story that saves the New York Public Library. I'm thinking of mystery. I'm thinking of conspiracy. I'm thinking of buried treasure, maybe national treasure, perhaps. We find out that the name, the cartographers, comes from the parents' group naming themselves that when they write their dream atlas, they're not going to write themselves by individual name, but they have named themselves the cartographers. So here I am thinking maybe the cartographers is a conspiracy group that's trying to keep this buried treasure a secret for whatever reason. Like what is happening where this buried treasure is secret, and maybe some people know about it and some people don't, and others are trying to desperately find their way to get to this treasure that they need the map to get to. But there's no treasure. The treasure is just finding your mom alive and all the friends we made along the way, which still, yes, is good. That's still good. Like, your mom's alive. Yay, your mom's alive. I love that for you. You end up getting your job back. The New York Public Library is saved by good publicity. Is that what we're going for here? Because everybody gets their job back, right? Everybody that has been in the cartographers that is left, and their friendship group fell apart after the mother died. I know I keep referring to her as the mother. I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry. It's just Mom, the mysterious mom, because moms always die in the beginning of a book as some sort of character development. At the end, all of the cartographers who are still alive become connected back together, and they, reaffirm their bonds of friendship for each other, and the mom is alive, your mom is back from the grave, and you all get your jobs back in the New York Public Library. But if the library was struggling with funding, and Agloe brought good publicity to the library, which then brought more money and notoriety, how was the library then able to hire back all of you? Where did they get the funding to hire back all of you if they've been struggling with funding until the last quarter? And then how can the library know how much longer that this will continue? How much longer will this good publicity continue so that they can continue to have you in the maps department? So the library is struggling with its funding and struggling with its budget. 2 people have died that work at the library, but like 5 people get rehired. So really that 3 or 4, if it's 6 people and not 5, 3 or 4 new positions were just hired into the library. 2 to replace the 2 people who died, the director and then Nell's father. And then Nell and Felix and everybody else gets their job back at the library, right? Where did they secure this funding? And how can they rely on the good publicity of Agloe, a town that doesn't exist, existing? How can they rely on that to continuously bring them in enough funding to be confident in their choice to hire these people and be able to properly function? Like, am I thinking too deeply about this? Yes, I'm absolutely thinking too deeply about this. I should have just absorbed this. It said, wow, this is a really nice story about rediscovering the joys of found family. And oh my God, your mom's back from the dead too. That's amazing. That's great. I'm so happy that my mom is alive and that I get my job back. But I am just too dedicated to understanding the spectrum of perception, and when Agloe loses its magical properties, the more it becomes perceived, and how the New York Public Library was saved from destitution, all from the good publicity. It's this constant, like, cyclical, like, madness, this descent into madness. And I should have just sat there and ate my food. I should have just sat there and been grateful that I got a 3-star read. That was a heartwarming story about my parents' friendship group and the band getting back together. But no, I am haunted at night. If anything, this has made me yearn for a good library story, for a good lost mystery story, a good buried treasure story. And so I've been looking more at books that include, like, books about books or in a library. So far, I have been disappointed, but I have a lot of those on my TBR. The one so far that has been a bit of a disappointment that I will talk about in another video when I have more books to talk about that I DNF'd, but The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. I was very excited to read that book, only to discover that not only did it have 8 books in its series, but when I got to about 15 to 20%, I realized that this was not interesting enough for me to continue and be dedicated to an 8-book series, because I would have had to have been extremely invested. And I think most of the part of the problem with that book is that it was YA. That's not to its detriment. It's really not meant for me, and I think that was the main problem. But I will talk about this at a later date. That's just saying that the cartographers made me want to read books about books, or books about libraries, or books about treasures, and the first one that I settled on was not that good. I think I have rambled sufficiently enough about this book in order to display to you the degree to which this is haunting me at night, and I just needed to get all of these thoughts out. I should have recorded this about 3 weeks ago, but I got really busy being the new World of Warcraft season just came out, and I've been preoccupied. But I have still been reading. I'm not reading as much as I was because I've been socializing a little bit more, but I've still read so far, I think 4 books in the month of March. I am maybe 2 to 3 books behind. I think more like 2. I'm more like about 2 books behind my normal pace from the last 2 months. The next video I have planned is the rant review for A River of Golden Bones. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me if you got to the end of this video. If you'd like to find me anywhere else, you could find me on Twitter and on Twitch. Remember to drink water and be nice to each other and exude kindness and empathy with everything that you do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!